I guess I should start by introducing myself. My name is Jake, and I was married to Lisa for nearly 10 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship built on trust, love, and a shared vision of building a life together. We were the kind of couple that friends envied, always laughing, cuddling on the couch, and dreaming about our future. But looking back, I realized we glossed over the cracks that were forming beneath our feet. There were signs, of course. The late nights at work became more frequent, and she started to pay more attention to her appearance. I thought nothing of it at first. She was involved in a housing justice organization, which was a passion project for her. I was proud of her dedication to fighting for affordable housing and helping those in need. But over time, Lisa became increasingly secretive about her phone. She would often leave the room to take calls and would suddenly stop talking once I entered. I brushed it off, attributing her behavior to stress from work. But then, one day, I accidentally stumbled upon something that shattered my world. I had come home early from a meeting, eager to surprise her with dinner. As I walked into our house, I heard laughter coming from the back room. It was an unfamiliar voice, a man's voice. My heart raced as I tiptoed closer, trying to make sense of what was happening. I could hear snippets of conversation, and they sounded so intimate, so familiar. It felt wrong. I decided to peek through the slightly ajar door, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Lisa was sitting on the couch, leaning into another man, Dan, her colleague from the organization. He was whispering something in her ear, and the way she giggled made me feel sick. It was a betrayal I never saw coming. After that moment, everything spiraled out of control. Confronting Lisa was the hardest thing I've ever done. I burst into the living room, and the look on her face was a mixture of shock and guilt. There was no hiding anymore. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted, my voice trembling with anger. "Jake, it's not what you think." She stammered, her eyes wide in panic. She tried to compose herself, but the facade was crumbling fast. She quickly moved to explain that Dan was just a friend helping with a project, but my gut told me otherwise. The way she fidgeted with her hands and avoided my gaze only confirmed my suspicions. I demanded the truth. "I saw you too. You were practically in each other's laps." I felt rage bubbling up within me, a boiling point I couldn't control. Lisa's excuses fell flat. She claimed that I was too focused on work and had let our marriage slip. That somehow I was at fault for her infidelity. That hit harder than any blow. How could she twist this around? As the confrontation escalated, Lisa's irritation turned into defensiveness. She accused me of being paranoid and insecure. I felt a surge of anger, sadness, and disbelief all at once. I had trusted her. I had supported her dreams, even when it meant sacrificing time together. And now she was throwing it all back in my face. My heart broke into a million pieces that day. I felt like a fool, like I had been living in a lie. The emotional roller coaster was relentless. I cycled through anger, disbelief, and eventually, a crushing sadness. I couldn't understand how someone I thought I knew so well could betray me so deeply. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. My mind raced with questions. Did she ever truly love me? What did he offer her that I could? I found myself obsessively replaying moments in our marriage, searching for signs I had missed. It was unbearable. I needed to make a decision about how to move forward. Did I want to fight for our marriage, or was it time to cut my losses and move on? Either way, I knew I had to confront the reality of what had happened, and that meant evaluating not just our relationship, but my own self-worth. As I reflected on everything, I realized that I wanted to emerge from this stronger. I needed to rediscover who I was outside of being Lisa's husband, someone deserving of love, respect, and honesty. I was determined to build a life that wasn't defined by betrayal. Little did I know, the journey ahead would be filled with unexpected twists and turns, testing my resolve in ways I never could have imagined. As I sat in the quiet of our home, the stillness felt suffocating. The walls that had once echoed with laughter now seemed to close in on me. I had loved Lisa fiercely, and that love felt like a shackle, chaining me to the hurt and betrayal. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I thought I knew about our marriage was a lie. The days after the confrontation felt like an endless cycle of pain and confusion. I spent a lot of time alone, grappling with the emotional fallout. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the noise in my head. It was during one of those long nights at the office that I received a text message that would change everything. It was from one of Lisa's friends, Sarah. "Hey, I've been trying to reach you. Can we talk?" That simple message sent a chill down my spine. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to continue wallowing in my grief and anger. But another part of me was desperate for answers, answers that Lisa had refused to give me. I met Sarah at a small coffee shop the next day, my heart racing with anticipation and dread. When I arrived, she was already sitting at a corner table, fidgeting with her coffee cup. I took a seat across from her, and the weight of what was about to be disclosed hung heavily in the air. "Jake, I'm really sorry about what happened with Lisa," she began, her voice low. "I wish I could say I didn't see it coming, but well, I did. She's been different for a while now." "Different how?" I asked, desperate for clarity. Sarah hesitated, glancing around as if someone might overhear. "She's been confiding in me about her struggles with the marriage. She mentioned feeling stuck and that she wasn't sure if she still wanted to be with you." My heart sank, but I didn't know she was seeing someone else, Jake, I swear. I felt the anger welling back up inside. "So she's been lying to me this whole time, and you didn't think to say anything?" "I tried to talk to her about it," Sarah replied, her tone defensive. "But she just brushed me off, saying she needed to figure things out herself. I didn't want to betray her trust." At that moment, I realized how deep the betrayal ran. It wasn't just Lisa's infidelity, it was a web of deceit woven through the very fabric of our lives. I felt a mix of gratitude and rage toward Sarah. I appreciated her honesty, but it only added to my suffering. I needed to know more, so I pressed on. "Did she ever mention Dan before? Was this just a fling, or was there something more?" I asked, my voice trembling. Sarah sighed, her expression conflicted. "She said he was a good listener, someone who understood her passion for housing justice. But I don't think it was just about that. I think she was looking for something, Jake. Something she felt was missing in your marriage." I wanted to scream. The reality of my marriage felt like a trap I couldn't escape. "So she sought that from him instead of talking to me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Honestly, maybe. But you have to understand, Jake, she was feeling lost. I think she thought that being with Dan would help her find herself." Sarah replied, her eyes filled with sympathy. I left that meeting with a heavy heart. The truth was painful, but it also gave me some clarity about Lisa's choices. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I couldn't keep holding on to the idea of who she used to be. I had to face the fact that Lisa had chosen a path that didn't include me, and that was an ugly reality I needed to come to terms with. As the days turned into weeks, I began to reflect on my own life. I started to think about what I truly wanted moving forward. I didn't want to be the victim of my circumstances. I wanted to reclaim my life, to build a foundation that couldn't be compromised. I began to channel my anger and hurt into something constructive. I took a hard look at my career. I had always dreamed of working in affordable housing, inspired by Lisa's passion, but never pursued it myself. It was time to take control. I started looking into programs that focused on constructing affordable homes and making an impact in the community. In the midst of all this emotional chaos, I realized that I could either wallow in despair or rise from the ashes of my ruined marriage. Building a career in affordable housing felt like the right step. I wanted to create shelters that were not only physically safe but also built on principles of honesty and integrity, values I felt I had lost in my personal life. Yet a fire was brewing inside me. I wasn't just going to recover, I was going to thrive. I wanted Lisa to understand the consequences of her actions, not just for my sake, but for her own. The thought turned into a plan, something tangible to focus my energy on. I would not let her betrayal define me. But I knew, deep down, that revenge was simmering beneath my newfound determination. I wasn't sure how it would play out yet, but I felt a strong urge to make my mark, to show Lisa that I could rise above this, stronger and better than ever before. As I set my sights on this new path, I realized that I was ready to embrace whatever came next, even if it meant confronting Lisa again. It was time for me to take control of my story. As I immersed myself in the world of affordable housing, I found a renewed sense of purpose. I enrolled in courses that focused on sustainable construction and community development. I started volunteering with local organizations, helping to build homes for those in need. Each nail I hammered and every wall I raised felt like a personal victory. I was pouring my heart into something meaningful, something that aligned with my values. But even as I threw myself into my new passion, Lisa's presence lingered like a ghost. We had a joint bank account, and I couldn't avoid her entirely. Our interactions were strained and filled with a heavy tension that made everything feel awkward. She tried to reach out, often texting me about mundane things, like bills or plans we'd made before everything had fallen apart. I kept my responses short, trying to maintain a safe emotional distance. One afternoon, I received a notification that Lisa had scheduled a time to meet. She wanted to sit down and talk about our relationship. My heart raced. I wasn't sure I was ready for that. But I knew that avoiding the inevitable would only prolong the pain. So I agreed to meet her at a cafe, a neutral ground where I could maintain some emotional control. When I arrived, Lisa was already seated, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. She looked different, more put together, as if she were trying to project confidence and composure, but I could see the crack in her facade. Her eyes hinted at worry, and for a moment I felt a flicker of empathy. "Thanks for coming, Jake," she began, her voice softer than I expected. "I know things have been really rough between us." I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on my chest. "Yeah, rough is one way to put it," I replied coolly, not ready to unravel all my emotions just yet. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she continued, nervously spinning her coffee cup. "I know I messed up, and I'm really sorry for everything that happened. I didn't mean for it to turn into what it did. I thought I was just, I don't know, searching for something." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You've made it clear what you were searching for, Lisa. You were looking for someone who would listen, someone who would give you what you felt you were missing in our marriage." My voice was steady, but inside I was fuming. "I was stupid," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "Can we at least talk about how to move forward? I miss you, Jake. I want to fix this." At that moment, I felt a surge of mixed emotions. Part of me wanted to scream at her for the betrayal, for the hurt she had caused. But another part of me was still clinging to the idea of the life we had built together. I had spent weeks trying to detach myself from the emotional turmoil, and now here she was, asking for a chance to reconcile. "Do you really think we can just go back to how things were?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You broke my trust, Lisa. You broke us. I know I can't change what I did. I don't want to make excuses, but I felt so lost. Can't we at least try?" she pleaded, her voice cracking. In that moment, I felt a tide of resentment wash over me. I didn't want to be the man who forgave too easily. I didn't want to be the man who allowed himself to be walked all over again. "You had your chance, Lisa. You chose Dan over me. I need to focus on my life now, on building something that I believe in," I said firmly. Her face fell, and I could see the reality of my words sinking in. "I understand if you need time," she said, her voice small. "But I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt. Part of me wanted to believe her, to think that our love was strong enough to withstand the storm. But another part of me knew I had to be strong, to protect myself from future heartbreak. I needed to show her that I wouldn't be just another person to manipulate. As we parted that day, something shifted within me. I realized I wasn't just fighting for my own sense of closure. I was also building my own foundation, one that couldn't be compromised by someone else's choices. My heart was still aching from the betrayal, but I was beginning to build the emotional walls around it, brick by brick. I pushed myself to resist the temptation of reconciliation. I needed to focus on my own healing and my future. I dove headfirst into my work, taking on projects that would have a significant impact on the community. I was determined to create safe spaces for others, ensuring they would not face the same feelings of betrayal I had experienced. Meanwhile, I kept hearing whispers about Lisa and Dan. They were still together, continuing their affair. Each time I learned something new, It felt like a knife twisting deeper into my gut, but I refused to let it cripple me. Instead, I channeled that pain into my work. With every home I helped build, I felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer the victim of my circumstances. I was a force to be reckoned with. I began to connect with others in the housing justice movement, and I found a community that shared my passion. The more I engaged, the more I realized how much I wanted to be a part of this cause, how much I wanted to fight for those who truly needed shelter, unlike the one I had shared with Lisa. The deeper I dug into my new path, the clearer my emotions became. I wanted revenge, not in a petty way, but as a way to rise above her betrayal. I wanted to show her that I could flourish without her influence, that I could build a life that was not only beautiful but also fortified by ethics and integrity. I was ready for the next step, whatever that may be. I was transforming the pain I felt into something powerful, something that couldn't be diminished by anyone else's choices. My journey was far from over, and I was finally ready to take charge. As autumn rolled in, the crisp air filled my lungs, energizing my resolve. I had thrown myself into my new work with a vigor I hadn't felt in ages. I was focused on building a project that would offer affordable housing to families who needed it the most, a community where people wouldn't feel lost or betrayed. I wanted to create a space that fostered connection, compassion, and trust. But as my work flourished, Lisa's presence still loomed large in my life. She continued to contact me, sending texts that were often filled with apologies or inquiries about my projects. I was surprised that she still cared about my work, even after everything that had happened. I didn't respond to most of them. I wanted to keep my distance. But curiosity often got the better of me, and I found myself wondering how she could move on so easily. One day, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Sarah again, Lisa's friend. "Hey, Jake, can we meet up? There's something I think you should know," she said, her tone serious. A knot formed in my stomach. I agreed to meet her at the same cafe where I had confronted Lisa. I arrived feeling apprehensive, unsure of what news Sarah had in store. When I saw her, there was an urgency in her eyes that made me anxious. "Jake, I don't want to get involved in your personal drama, but I feel like you need to know what's been going on," she said, her voice low as if we were sharing a secret. "Just tell me," I replied, bracing myself for whatever revelation was about to come. "Lisa and Dan have been working together on another project for the housing organization. They're getting closer, and I overheard some things that concerned me," she said, glancing around as if someone might hear. "I think they're planning to take their relationship public." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. Part of me was angry, while another part felt betrayed all over again. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice tight with emotion. "I just thought you should know. I can see how much you've been improving since the breakup, and you deserve to focus on yourself, not on what she's doing," Sarah replied, her eyes filled with sympathy. "I just don't want you to get caught up in more drama." "Thanks for the heads up," I said, trying to mask the whirlwind of feelings inside me. I appreciated her honesty, but I also felt a renewed sense of anger. How could Lisa move on so quickly, flaunting her new relationship while I was still grappling with the fallout? Over the next few days, I felt myself spiraling into a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and an overwhelming desire for closure. I had spent so much time healing and focusing on my work, but hearing about Lisa and Dan reignited the pain I thought I had buried. I could feel the resentment bubbling beneath the surface, and it was time to confront it. I decided to take a different approach. Instead of wallowing, I wanted to disrupt the narrative. I wanted to show Lisa that I wasn't just going to sit back and let her dictate the terms of our separation. I wanted to take the reins, to reclaim my story in a way that would make her realize what she lost. After a few days of contemplation, I made an impulsive decision. I would throw a launch party for the housing project I was working on, a celebration for the community and an opportunity to showcase what I had been building. But I had another motive. I wanted Lisa to see me thriving, to see that I had moved on in a way that she hadn't expected. The day of the event arrived, and I poured every ounce of energy I had into making it a success. I invited community members, local leaders, and friends I had made through my work. I even invited Sarah, who was supportive of my vision. I wanted to create a positive atmosphere filled with hope, and I was ready to show Lisa that I was not the broken man she had left behind. When Lisa arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. She walked in, looking stunning, with Dan by her side. They clearly made an attractive couple, and I felt a pang of jealousy that I quickly shoved aside. This day was about me and what I had accomplished, not about her. As I mingled with guests, I caught glimpses of Lisa and Dan talking to people, laughing and sharing stories. I could feel my heart racing every time I glanced in their direction. But I stood tall, engaging with everyone around me, reminding myself that I was worthy of this moment. At one point during the evening, Lisa approached me. "Jake," she said hesitantly, her smile forced. "I just wanted to say congratulations on your project. It looks amazing." "Thanks, Lisa," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "I appreciate that. It's been a lot of hard work, but I'm really proud of how it's turned out." "I'm glad to see you're doing well," she added, her voice softer than I anticipated. "I've been meaning to reach out more to talk about how things are between us." I cut her off, feeling a surge of determination. "I think it's best if we don't discuss our relationship here, Lisa. This is about the community and the work we're doing. Let's keep it focused on that." The look in her eyes shifted to one of surprise, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of regret, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. I needed to stay strong to show her that I was moving forward, regardless of her choices. As the night went on, I felt the energy of the room lift. I was surrounded by people who believed in the vision I had created. I shared my passion for affordable housing, my commitment to ethical construction, and the importance of building foundations that wouldn't compromise the integrity of our communities. The applause and support from everyone filled me with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. When I looked over at Lisa and Dan, I realized that I was no longer affected by their presence. I had built something beautiful from the ashes of my past, and that was worth celebrating. I had turned my pain into purpose, and no one could take that away from me. As the evening wound down, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. I had taken control of my narrative and emerged stronger than I ever thought possible. I knew that my journey was still far from over, but I was ready to face whatever lay ahead with renewed belief in myself and my mission. And as for Lisa, I hoped that one day she would understand the weight of her choices, but that was no longer my concern. I was focused on building a future that would not be tainted by betrayal. I was ready to embrace the next chapter of my life, one built on trust, integrity, and a solid foundation. The success of the launch party felt like a turning point for me. I was buoyed by the energy of community support and the validation of my hard work. As the days turned into weeks, I threw myself into my project with even more fervor. I was not just building homes, I was building a legacy. Yet life sometimes has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. One evening, while I was reviewing project plans at a local coffee shop, I spotted Lisa and Dan walking in. My heart raced, and I felt an involuntary jolt of tension in my chest. They looked happy, laughing and holding hands, and for a brief moment I felt a stab of jealousy mixed with hurt. I quickly redirected my focus to my laptop, pretending not to notice them. But of course, I couldn't help but overhear snippets of their conversation. They were talking about their plans for the future, discussing their project and how excited they were to make a difference in people's lives. It was infuriating. Here was Lisa, the woman who had shattered my trust, now seemingly thriving with someone else. As they settled at a table near mine, I caught snippets of their conversation. Lisa was animated, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm as she described their shared vision for affordable housing. I felt the bitterness rise within me again, but I steeled myself. I had come too far to let her affect me now. Still, I found it difficult to concentrate on my work. The memories of our life together flooded my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I was grateful that I had moved on, but it was hard to watch her building a new life while I was still navigating the emotional wreckage of what we had lost. After a few minutes, I gathered my things and decided to leave. As I stood up to walk out, I felt a rush of anger and determination. I had spent too long in her shadow, feeling inadequate and betrayed. It was time to reclaim my narrative once and for all. That night I went home and threw myself into my work. The plans for the houses were coming together beautifully. I envisioned a community that would not only provide shelter but foster belonging. I wanted to create a space where people could thrive, just as I was starting to find my footing again. But then, fate intervened. A few days later, I received an email that would change my trajectory once again. A local news outlet wanted to feature my housing project in an article about innovative approaches to affordable living. They had heard about my launch party and were impressed by the community's response. This was a breakthrough, and I knew it could bring more visibility and support to my work. As I prepared for the interview, my confidence grew. I realized that this was my moment to shine, not just for myself but for everyone who believed in what I was doing. This was about more than just me. It was about the community, the families who needed homes, and the legacy I wanted to leave behind. The day of the interview arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. I had rehearsed my talking points and was ready to discuss why affordable housing mattered. As I sat down with the journalist, I felt empowered. This was my chance to speak my truth and share my vision with a larger audience. During the interview, I passionately discussed the importance of ethical construction and the role of community in creating sustainable living environments. I spoke about my personal journey, how the experience with Lisa had pushed me to redefine my priorities and helped shape my vision for affordable housing. I could see the journalist nodding, engaged with my story. After the interview, I felt exhilarated. I knew I had poured my heart into my words, and that felt incredibly liberating. As I left the coffee shop, I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was on the horizon, something that would solidify my place in the community and propel my work to new heights. But that night, as I was winding down, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. It was casual, almost innocuous. "Hey, I saw the article about your project. Congratulations, I'm really proud of you." I stared at the screen, a mix of disbelief and annoyance coursing through me. Why was she reaching out now? I took a moment to breathe, reminding myself of how far I had come. I had worked hard to move past our relationship, and I wasn't about to let her words draw me back into her orbit. I typed out a response, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I felt the need to acknowledge her message but wanted to maintain my distance. "Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. It means a lot," I finally sent, keeping it brief and neutral. A few moments later, my phone buzzed again. "I'd love to catch up sometime. I'd like to hear about your plans for the project." I groaned inwardly. Did she really think we could just pick up where we left off? But something inside me also felt a flicker of intrigue. Maybe I could use this opportunity to gain more insight into her mindset, to understand what had driven her to make the choices she did. After contemplating for a bit, I decided to suggest a meeting. "Sure, let's grab coffee next week. I can share more about the project and what I've been working on. Just don't expect me to dive into our past." I texted back, my heart racing with the thought of seeing her again. The exchange left me feeling uneasy yet strangely empowered. I was no longer the man struggling to reclaim his identity. I was a man with a vision. And I was ready to face Lisa when we met, to show her that I had transformed the pain of our past into something meaningful. As the week progressed, I prepared for our meeting, reminding myself that I was in control. I had built a life rooted in integrity and purpose, and I wasn't about to let anyone, especially Lisa, diminish that. I felt like I was standing at the edge of another significant turning point, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The day of the coffee meeting arrived, and I felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. I wanted to go in with my head held high, confident and ready to showcase the man I had become, someone who had rebuilt his life after betrayal. When I walked into the cafe, I spotted Lisa sitting at a corner table. She looked different, more grounded, yet there was a familiar glimmer in her eyes. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before approaching her. "Hey Lisa," I said, forcing a smile as I took a seat across from her. "Jake, it's good to see you," she responded, her voice warm but slightly tentative. "I've been looking forward to this." "Me too," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I wanted to establish a boundary to remind both of us that things were different now. We spent a few minutes engaging in small talk, but I could sense a tension underlying our conversation. Finally, I broached the topic that had brought us together. So I saw your projects in the organization. It looks like you and Dan are really making an impact. Lisa nodded, her excitement palpable. Yeah, we're working on some innovative housing solutions trying to address the needs of low-income families. It's been amazing to see the community come together. I listened, feeling a mixture of admiration and resentment. It was hard not to marvel at her passion, but it was also a bitter reminder of the connection we once shared. That's great to hear. I'm glad you're still pursuing what you love, I said, trying to keep my tone genuine. Thanks, Jake. I really am sorry for how things went down between us, she said, looking me in the eye. I was in a dark place and I made choices that I regret. I took a deep breath, wanting to respond but needing to choose my words carefully. I appreciate your honesty, Lisa, but it's hard for me to forget the hurt. It felt like you chose everything else over our marriage. I know. Trust me, I've done a lot of thinking since then, she admitted, her voice tinged with regret. I understand if you can't forgive me, but I want you to know that I've changed. I'm trying to be a better person. Her vulnerability made it difficult to hold on to. My anger, I could see the remorse in her eyes, a stark contrast to the bravado she had shown during our marriage. I'm glad to hear that, I said, my voice steady, but I can't go back to how things were. I've spent too much time focusing on my own path. I have to protect what I've rebuilt. For the first time, I saw the flicker of understanding in her eyes. I get that. I don't expect us to just pick up where we left off. I just hope we can find a way to coexist, at least for the sake of our shared passions. I nodded, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. I think that's possible. I want to focus on building something positive both for myself and the community. As we continued to talk, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. It was as if I was finally able to close the door on our past, and though there would always be scars, I was ready to let them fade. Lisa was part of my history, but she was no longer part of my present or future. After an hour of conversation, we wrapped up and I could feel a sense of mutual respect growing between us. I really do wish you the best, Jake, she said as we stood up to leave. You've come so far and you deserve all the success. Thanks, Lisa. I hope you find what you're looking for too, I replied sincerely. I walked out of the cafe with a sense of liberation, knowing I had stood my ground while also extending an olive branch. In the weeks that followed, I continued to focus on my work, and the article about my project gained traction. I received several inquiries from potential investors and community leaders wanting to join forces, and it was exhilarating. The community began to rally around my vision, and I felt like I was finally making a meaningful impact. I had learned a lot through this journey. I learned that betrayal can cut deep, but it can also serve as a catalyst for growth. I learned that it's not about the cards you're dealt, but how you choose to play them. I learned that I had the power to build not just houses, but a legacy rooted in integrity and compassion. And as I stood at the site of my first completed project, watching families move into their new homes, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. I was no longer the broken man paralyzed by betrayal. I was a builder of dreams, a creator of safe spaces, and a champion for those in need. I took a moment to breathe in the crisp air, feeling the sun warm my face. I had reclaimed my narrative, and it was one filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of a brighter future. Life was waiting for me, and I was ready to embrace it fully, unburdened by the past and excited for what lay ahead.